Good morning, and thank you so much for joining us for this week's Thursday with AARP Wisconsin. I am Amber Miller, Associate State Director, and I want to thank you so much for being here today. We are actually taking the week off from our live broadcast, but we're very excited to replay one of our favorite videos, which we will get to in just a moment. I'm not sure if you knew, but a few months ago, AARP Wisconsin launched a grant program called Small Dollar Big Impact. And it's exactly what it sounds like. Grants up to $1,000 for nonprofits and other organizations to apply for to make impact within their community. I'm excited to announce our winners for today, which are for Cycle 2, which is the Milwaukee Eastside Business Improvement District out of Milwaukee, and the museums in Platteville. If you're looking for more information on their great proposal, please visit our website at aarp.org/Wisconsin. And if you are looking to apply for one of our grants or possibly even know of an organization that would be interested in applying, please have them visit the link below. Proposals for Cycle 3 funding will be due July 20th. So the video that we're going to be sharing with you today came out a couple months ago, and it actually really coincides with the Small Dollar Big Impact Grant. It's all about thinking outside the box. The word placemaking might be new to you, but what it is looking at a space in your community and seeing what you can do with it. Maybe you're planting a garden, maybe using old bicycles to activate a space for it to be artistic, for people to come together. So the video that's coming up is by author Peter Kageyama, who, after I interviewed him, I was super inspired to see what our state of Wisconsin can do. So that will be coming up shortly, but please remember, if you know of any organization or any community organizations that are looking to apply for a small grant of up to $1,000 to better impact your community, please visit the link below. And thank you so much, and please enjoy the video.
Hi, this is Darren with AARP Wisconsin, and thank you to today's episode of Live with AARP Wisconsin. We're going to talk a little bit about our new pilot grant project, Small Dollar Big Impact. This is something that we've just launched as of last week, and we're excited to be able to bring you a little bit more information today on it. This came about really after reading a book by our guest today, where he highlighted some projects from the Awesome Foundation. And it really struck a chord with me when I saw the focus on, what can we do for a little bit amount of money? There's still a lot of great stuff that can happen that you don't need, thousands and thousands of dollars to do, or and that's what often kind of sticks projects there. So what can we do for $1,000? And as our guest Peter Kageyama said it best to us earlier this week when we talked, that the fun thing about this is that it would really give people permission to come up with fun and weird stuff. And that is our goal for communities around Wisconsin with these grant dollars. What would kind of work in the 8 domains of livability that AARP's Livable Communities project is based on, and stuff that wouldn't necessarily be funded by a typical foundation, but it gives the project organizers a chance to bring some fun into the community. And so a little bit about the grant. You can find information on our website and the easiest way to get it is a bit.ly link. It's bit.ly/SDBI May 20. That's bit.ly/SDBI May 20. And that denotes that this is the application period for May. So one of the things that we're doing that's unique in this is we're running it from now until November. And the application for this round is due on May the 18th, and the winner will be announced on June the 4th. And we'll we'll award up to $1,000 each month between now and November. So if you have a project that you'd want to do, but now just isn't the time to apply, there'll be other chances throughout the year to do that. Also, if you apply for a project, if you submit your application this round and you're not selected, but you do want to have it considered in the next round, you can reapply again. We will not keep the applications. You'll need to resubmit another one for that because we don't want to be worried about if the timing is still right or if the project's going to go forward. And to help with that, we've really tried to make the grant application as simple as possible. There is it's an online form that you do, and you will just answer a couple of questions, have a chance to upload some photos, and then we'll have our judges select as a winner from that. So if you go to the link that's scrolling along the bottom of your screen, bit.ly/SDBI May 20, you'll find all the information. That's also on our AARP Wisconsin website. So if the bit.ly link doesn't work, you can go to the website that's listed in the banner below. One of the things that we did want to just stress is that this is open for throughout all of Wisconsin. It's any community, any neighborhood group. If you have an idea, feel free to submit your application. There are eligibility requirements, and all of those can be found on the link. But I know that in speaking with some people about it, they've said, you know, what things can you do for $1,000 that we're so used to trained that we need big dollar things? And so I could think of no better person to invite than my next guest, author Peter Kageyama. I first met Peter as a keynote presenter at a National Main Street conference that I was at. And that had triggered me to get his books, and I loved his writing. And that is the inspiration for this grant project that we're listing, that we've rolled out here. And so, Peter, I would like you, I know that you have some great ideas on what kind of projects can be done with just a little bit of dollars. And so we'd love for you to share a little bit with us this morning.
Sure. Well, thank you, Darren. It's a pleasure to be here with you. I'm coming to you from sunny St. Petersburg, Florida, but we're all sort of in lockdown mode here as well. And yeah, I talk and I write about small things that have, I think, big impacts. A lot of times I call these things love notes, a small thing with a big outsized impact. It's the handwritten note that goes with the gift that oftentimes can be more important than the gift itself. So I think in our rush to try to make our communities better, we often go to the big project, and we think that's what we really need to do, is something big, massive, epic, as it were. But I think at the tail end of that, the small things are really significant, and they can be a lot of fun. And more importantly, they can be done by us. They don't have to wait for governments or big corporations or foundations or huge entities like that. Is that when we feel passionately about something, we can go out and do it, knock it out in a weekend kind of thing, as opposed to on a much bigger scale. So I thought what I would do is I'd share some kind of fun examples with you guys and maybe stimulate some thinking, maybe stimulate a few questions, and hopefully turn you guys loose on your respective communities. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to share my screen here. And okay, application window, and here we go. All right, so small, fun, and lovable there. So my first sort of real exposure to this actually occurred about 12 years ago when I was on the board of an organization called Creative Tampa Bay. And we were doing something similar to what AARP was doing, which is we had a little bit of grant money, and we wanted to give out some money to some of the creative folks in our community to try to get them to do something kind of interesting. And of course, when we ask people to do something for the community or to apply for any kind of grant, a lot of times we go to a very earnest, sort of hardworking sort of spot, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But what we were trying to do is get people to think about this stuff in a different way. And when all of the projects came in, I recall being in the room because we were the judges of this. And this particular project, their application, when we first read it, I sort of stood up and I said, that's the one we need to fund. It was called Swings Tampa Bay. And what this was these two young men, they were both in college at the time, Ruben and Hunter. Ruben's the airborne one there. They had this crazy idea that they wanted to hand paint swings there and hang them from trees and buildings all around the Tampa Bay area. And this project had started at the USF St. Petersburg campus, where they had done this as sort of an urban experiment there on campus, and people kind of loved it. And the whole idea, they said, was that a swing is a spontaneous community building exercise. Is that if you see a swing and you're there with your partner, maybe they're more likely you're there with your kids, right? The kids run to the swing, and all of a sudden now you're pushing them on the swing and you're having a great time. A spontaneous community building exercise for a very little bit of money. And the whole idea was they hung, and we gave them this tiny grant. And over the next about 3 years, they hung several hundred of these swings all over Tampa Bay. And it included things like, there it is, like this there, which is very cool. But the reason why I thought this one was very cool was where it was actually located, which was in the overpass above I-275. Now, these guys admitted that this one didn't last very long. The city did come and take this one down. But they said the city was actually pretty cool about all of this stuff, all the places that they did this, because they recognized that these folks were doing this out of sort of a sense of fun and a sense of positivity, that they weren't trying to sell swings. They were actually just trying to do something kind of fun and interesting for their community. And that notion is what we're really trying to capture here. And as Darren had mentioned, that the Awesome Foundation, which I learned about several years ago and I wrote about in my second book, it started in like 2012 when a small group of young professionals in the Boston area decided to get together, and they said to put their money where their mouth was. They said, we're going to put up $100 a month, and there was 10 of them. So they're going to give out a $1,000 grant every month to a project that they thought was awesome, right? And their application was really simple. It's like, tell us who you are, tell us what you want to do, and tell us why it's awesome. And actually, the first project they ever funded was actually a giant hammock. Why? Well, because it's awesome there. So the whole idea is that this hammock it was kind of fun, and it would sit out in the park, and people would get together, and then who knows what sort of happens there? Maybe a spontaneous performance thing happens there, or you're just hanging out there with your friends and your family. They're certainly not social distancing at this point, but that's kind of cool. Now think about the nature of that particular project. There is no way that would have gotten funded by the United Way, because they were going to say, well, where's the social good in that? Or it wouldn't have gotten funded by the Arts Council either, because they're going to say, well, there's not enough artistic content in that. So really what the Awesome Foundation was trying to do was say, look, there's a gap in all of this, and we want to help fill that there, because there's projects out there that people want to do that, sometimes it's for their own amusement, but it's kind of weird, it's a little bit offbeat, but it's definitely fun. I think that's an awesome project. And how about this one? This comes from Greenville, South Carolina. And this one actually started in like 2000. It must be in the year 2000. A high school student came to the mayor with an idea. Says, hey, Mr. Mayor, I want to do this scavenger hunt in downtown Greenville. I want to cast these little brass mice. I want to put them there on Main Street and encourage people to sort of go and explore the city. The mayor said, interesting. How much money is this going to cost? These kids said like $1,200. And yeah, for $1,200, the mayor said, sure, let's do it. So they cast the mice and they put them downtown. This is called the Mice on Main. Now, Greenville is one of the most successful downtowns in the United States. In fact, a lot of folks point to that as an exemplar of great, urban planning and a great downtown there as well. But the thing that I remember is this small thing, these little, brass mice. And the mice are all very cute. They've all been given names. It's all been given a backstory as well. And you find the maps for these the mice in these stores. They're all throughout downtown. And it's all actually been collected into this really cool children's book called The Mice on Main. I think that's kind of awesome. So again, a small project that somebody says, well, seriously, that we're going to do that? Yeah, why not? And again, amidst all of that incredibly well done big stuff there in Greenville, one of my lasting impressions, and one of the things I think about in this city, is those silly little mice. So yes, these little things can absolutely make a big difference. Or how about stuff like this in Ann Arbor, Michigan, which for about 20 years now has been known for the fairy doors that started there. And again, something small and something kind of charming there that's actually spread all over Michigan, but Ann Arbor is one of the first places where it's actually sort of well known that that happened. So these tiny little doors that popped up in their downtown. And it's like, well, who knows actually who did that? It's like, and that's kind of not the point. And maybe what it is somebody does it, somebody inspires somebody else to maybe go, hey, I could do something like that. And if you're not just into fairy doors, well, how about fairy houses? In Overland Park, Kansas, there was a woman who actually started to build these fairy houses there and put them into the Parks Department, which did cause a little bit of an issue with the Parks Department because they're a little worried about maintaining them over time. But the point was that people absolutely love them, and there was actually a little journey that you could take in their parks to sort of go and look for these particular fairy houses. Like, that's kind of cool. And, maybe I'm got a little obsessed with, fairies. And what about gnomes? Maybe it's tiny creatures, hobbits and dwarves and all of that. But the Oakland gnomes, this is fascinating because about 10 years ago, and I think the first, they said that the first sightings of these occurred in about 2012. So a guy starts painting these little hand-painted gnomes and puts them out into his neighborhood there as he walks his dog, right? And initially, he kind of did it in his own neighborhood because apparently, the people have interviewed the guy. He's still anonymous. Nobody officially knows who he is, but he has done a few interviews over time. And he said that he kind of did it in his own neighborhood just for his own amusement, but because the people in the neighborhood and especially the kids loved it so much, he says, okay, so he started doing more. So over time, he starts hand painting more and more of these gnomes. And as he walks his dog, he puts them out there onto telephone poles, utility poles, windowsills, little gardens, et cetera, et cetera. And it's kind of amazing. And you can actually go online, and if you search for, like on Google Maps, like Oakland gnomes, well, they estimate that there's over 6,000 of these gnomes out there that have been put out. Now, that's kind of incredible. Well, initially, what was kind of funny is that the Pacific Gas and Electric, the local utility company, got their nose bent out of shape because this guy was actually using their poles. And they kind of made this announcement that says, well, we're going to have to take the pole, the gnomes down. And people said, why? We love the gnomes. And PG&E said, well, it's a matter of safety. And, people called kind of bullshit on that one fairly quickly, saying, seriously? And PG&E realized they were on the wrong side of the gnome controversy. And they realized that this was a PR opportunity. And it says, okay, we agree with the gnomes can stay. So again, there's over 6,000 of these gnomes. Now, apparently what happened is the guy who actually started this recently, about 5 years ago, moved to Oklahoma. So now we have, apparently this was the local headline, Oklahoma, tiny gnome portraits invade Chickasaw, Oklahoma. So once the guy moved, he brought this idea with him to his new hometown. And I think it's kind of adorable. Now, what's significant about this is it's a small thing, but it's done over and over and over again until the fact that it becomes kind of a big thing. 6,000 of these gnomes in Oakland is kind of a big deal. There. So maybe something small like that could, be done by you. And you don't have to even be a great painter. And the guy admitted in one of the interviews, is I'm not a great painter there, but it kind of didn't matter that he was done for a different purpose. And it wasn't necessarily high art. Now, maybe some of you say, well, I can't even paint that well. It's like, okay, can you knit? It's like, have you heard of yarn bombing? Yeah, it's essentially making a sweater for a tree, right? Now, if you've ever seen any yarn bombing, I always think it's kind of interesting. This was really well done. This was actually in Safety Harbor, Florida, not too far from where I live there. And I took this photo a few weeks ago. That's pretty impressive. The thing about yarn bombing is people don't yarn bomb something they don't care about. So if you ever see yarn bombing in a place, it's because somebody actually cares about that neighborhood, about that tree, about that sign, whatever it is. It's a good sign. It's a very positive sign. And I had to note that some of the best yarn bombing I'd ever seen was actually up in Sequim, Washington. It was about an hour and a half outside of Seattle. This is amazing. This yarn bombing has structure, has a face, it has arms. Like, that's really cool. Or how about this one that actually happened to be over there by their city hall? Not only does it have arms and a face, it has a hat, it has a lily pad. He has a duck. That is amazing. That's a fantastic yarn bombing. So again, so a lot of folks think, well, if they can't paint or they can't sculpt, they really can't do anything creative for their community. It's like, well, can you knit? Can you do something else? Like, yeah, there's all kinds of ways that our creativity and our love for our community might manifest itself if we just thought about it, again, in a different way. Or how about this? This was just sort of a random weird one. And I was looking for these. I took this photo in Sydney, Australia earlier this year. And we were on our way, we were actually in an Uber. And I happened to notice a couple times in this one neighborhood, there was these little frescoes that apparently somebody put on the sides of buildings of stormtroopers. Now, maybe it's because I am a science fiction nerd and all that I would notice something like this. But somebody else, there's a lot of fans of, of things like Star Wars out there. But somebody thought, okay, let's put a stormtrooper helmet out there. I just thought that was kind of amazing. And again, that's a cool project. And again, memorable, and it may not appeal to a lot of folks, but certainly to a certain audience, that's kind of fun. Now, I would note that most communities have some very ugly chain link fence in them. It's kind of a natural byproduct of our existence. Like, okay, somewhere there's chain link fence, and I'm pretty sure it's kind of ugly. So maybe if we thought about that chain link fence as instead of being just an eyesore, well, maybe it's actually an opportunity. Because how about you could do something like this? This happened to be in Arlington, Virginia, around this one particular area that had been closed off. Actually, this is an area that Amazon is building into. But in the meantime, of course, they had to fence it off. But some folks says, well, what if we started to try to make some art around that? They took some old bicycles, they painted them, they locked them onto that. It's like, that to me is much more interesting than simply an ugly chain link fence. That's there. And so you can see that along the pathway. That's kind of fun. Again, fences are, they're kind of intimidating, and they're certainly, oftentimes they're ugly. Let's do something interesting with that. Or how about this one? Hampton, Virginia, this is an elementary school. And what they did is they invited the neighborhood, the kids and the families to come and they get a plank and they paint their own picture. That's really amazing there. So again, we got to have fences. I get that. But that doesn't mean we have to be satisfied with, that they are simply, functional and safe and, and kind of ugly and boring. But that to me is a wonderful little project. And then this was kind of interesting. This is Dunwoody, Georgia. And I was actually up there at the beginning of March. This is one of the last trips I made before everything sort of locked down here. And this is actually a little sign mural that's actually there at the Sproul Arts Gallery there in Dunwoody, Georgia. Dunwoody is north of Atlanta. It's sort of in that the Atlanta conurbation there. And it's a really simple mural. It says, everything will be okay. And this actually was put up several years ago, and it was meant to be a temporary mural. And then when the Art Center announced that it was going to be taken down, folks said, no, we love that mural. It's like, okay. And it was, again, a really simple message. There, that even before the whole coronavirus was a very beloved message there in Dunwoody. Now, in the last couple months, this has become incredibly meaningful and incredibly important, not only to this community, but to other communities as well, because a lot of people have shared that image. But Dunwoody did some amazing stuff there. In fact, the guy who runs the Sproul Arts Gallery told me that he had happened to run, early on in the crisis, he happened to run into the guy who prints the local signs there. He says, we got to do something. We got to get this message out there. We got to start sharing this incredibly important message with other people. So of course, like even the police department, everything will be okay. We've got these electronic signs that they put out there. But then the Sproul Arts Gallery did something kind of amazing. They offered up these. They printed these up. Everything will be okay. Signs. And then what you could do is you could order these signs online, and then someone from the Arts Center would come to your house and install the sign in your front yard, and for a small donation there. And actually what was amazing is because people, again, they love the sign, they love the message. It was incredibly timely. They started to buy lots of these signs. And what happened was the money that was being spent on these signs actually went into a fund to support local artists. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant, and very, very heartfelt. So again, something as simple as that. And again, that's not terribly, I guess, artistic, but it is heartful. It is meaningful there. So yeah, it doesn't necessarily have to be high art, but it has to be sort of interactive, and it has to maybe move you a little bit as well. Now, the last one I want to share happens to be kind of important as well, because I think it shows how a small project can actually have a really, really big impact. This is my friend Andrew Anderson, and I met him several years ago in Iowa City there. Now, and he was telling me about a project that had made him sort of Iowa famous there. Now, he lives in Muscatine, which is on the east side of Iowa there on the Mississippi River. And Andrew told me, he says, love my town, love my city, good people here, hardworking, salt of the earth. But the people in my community don't believe they're very creative. He said, I wanted to change that. I wanted them to believe something different about themselves. So he said one day he was looking at the Mississippi River, and for whatever reason, the idea of the Loch Ness Monster popped into his head. And he starts thinking about that. He starts thinking about this idea of maybe a monster that's lived in the Mississippi River there next to Muscatine, maybe for centuries, right? So he's a creative guy. So he goes home and he starts to think about this stuff. He starts to sketch things. He creates a Facebook page. He creates a Twitter account. He creates blog posts about this whole history of this monster. He starts building. And then in the summer of 2012, he debuts the Muscatine River Monster. It appears in the upper floors of this old hotel that had been converted to condos. He's working with the developers, working with the owners there, and they put these arms in. And the arms have those fans in them, so they actually moved in the wind. It's like, oh my God, how cool is that, right? And this project was up for like about a week. And folks were absolutely buzzing about the monster. There was all kinds of press coverage around this. People were coming down, taking pictures, all this stuff. And when folks found out he was the guy behind the monster, he said they were coming up to him and asking him, says, hey, we love the monster. Could we get it in our building? And he really hadn't intended this thing as anything other than a one-off. He said he spent about $2,000 on the materials there. Now, granted, he can build stuff. He goes, but sure, why not? Let's make this, let's spread it around. So now the monster's made the rounds. It's been in storefronts. It's been at the dorms at the community college. It's been in the public library. And yeah, it's even been in the 4th of July parade. I think that's amazing, right? And I'm looking at all these people who are looking at that monster. And these are the folks, this is his community. And I hope what those folks are looking, and when they look at that, they're thinking, you know what? One of us made that crazy thing. One of us. And here's a great example of an artist, somebody who loves their community, has essentially held up a mirror to his community and says, you know what? All that you think you are, yeah, but you are something more. That is important. That is powerful. And what a strange vehicle to deliver that message, right? A monster. Nowhere in city managers' handbooks are there pages on monsters, right? I would really worry if there was. But how cool is that? That again, somebody who looks at the problem in a different way, looks at the solution in a different way, and comes up with something wildly different and wildly creative like that, but responds to a very important need, is how do we feel about ourselves and our communities? We can change that. Now, again, Andrew said he spent a couple $1,000s on the materials there. And like you said, he can build some stuff. Now, maybe we don't have all that talent, but I think we have the ideas, and hopefully we have the heart and the inclination to maybe go out and maybe make some of this stuff happen. And I will remind you of this, that to do small things with great love, because even small things done with great love feel manifestly different. We know this, right? And this is your opportunity. With this small grant, I'm sure many of you have already thought about stuff you'd already like to do. Well, now, thanks to AARP Wisconsin, they're going to give you a little bit, a little bit of money, and maybe just that little bit of a nudge to actually get you and your friends out the door to actually doing something. And I hope that maybe what you've seen here today has given you a different perspective on that project that maybe you were thinking, it's like, yeah, we need to do this. This is good. This is, this is important but maybe we can make it a little bit more fun. Maybe we make it a little bit more whimsical. Maybe we can make it a little weirder, because when, if we were to do something like, a neighborhood cleanup, which granted, that's a good project and I'm not poo-pooing that at all. But the thing is nobody's going to do a neighborhood cleanup and go, that was the best neighborhood cleanup ever. We should do that again next weekend. But you know what? You do something fun and that engages people on multiple levels there, gets them excited about that. Go, that was amazing. What are we going to do next? That is really what we're hoping for here in all of this, that a little bit of money in the hands of folks like you who actually want to make a difference in your community can have a really, really big impact as we move forward and try to make for cities that are even better and more lovable. So with that, I will thank you guys for letting me come and chat with you here. I'd be happy to answer some questions. I think we've got some time here. If folks are interested in sort of the work that I do, my books are available on Amazon, both the print and ebook versions there as well. And I will sort of turn that back over. Then I will stop sharing and then I will come back. Darren, so there.
Great. Peter, thank you. I know that if we needed inspiration on things we can do, that you would be the guy to bring it to us. I loved when you said, these small projects can really help us change the way we feel about ourselves and our communities. And I think that is just, especially this time, we need a little love for ourselves and our communities as we're going forward. And so I hope that the timing on this grant is right there. Jeff in Two Rivers
Let's
asked
do it.
about what about a snowball fight in the middle of summer?
Yeah.
That's what Snowfest in Two Rivers is for.
I grew up in Ohio, so I remember the snowballs that you could get in summertime were started out as snowballs back in December or January when you put them in the freezer. By this time, they're ice balls. Now, I'm not maybe throwing ice balls at your neighbors is maybe not the best thing, but I like the idea there. How about a water balloon fight or something like that? But yeah, how could we do a safe snowball fight in the middle of May or June? There, but creative. I like the thing, and I like the fact that it flips it on its head. That we should do something, is unexpected, maybe in June, like a snowball fight. Yeah.
Great. Thanks. Just looking at some of the other comments, we've just got praise for you, which I know you've got a lot of fans here throughout Wisconsin. So
Well, thank you, Elizabeth. Yes, appreciate that.
So just a reminder for anybody who's interested in small dollar, big impact, the bit.ly is scrolling along the bottom on where to apply. The application deadline is May the 18th, and a winner will be announced on June the 4th.
Yeah.
This is a grant of up to $1,000, and we'll be awarding it monthly.
Awesome.
And on our website, if you have any questions, there's also a way to reach out and ask us those questions.
Hey,
so
Darren,
Peter,
I just want to make one little point there. I saw on the scroll there, somebody said forwarding this on to like the economic development folks, and absolutely, please do that. But here's the thing. A lot of these kinds of projects are the kinds of things that the people who live in a place, we're the ones who really need to lead on this, because it'd be kind of hard for the city or the economic development folks, or maybe even the Chamber of Commerce, to do some of this stuff that's a little out there and a little, kind of fun and funky there, because they're afraid of like, well, if we're having too much fun, people are going to think, well, why are you having so much fun there at the city or the economic development thing? So sometimes we're the ones who need to lead on this. Like, it'd be really hard maybe for the city or the economic development folks to say, you know what, we really need? We need a monster. They're like, the example that I showed. So seriously. But again, we as the people who live in a place, who care about a place, we're not operating under those same constraints. So yeah, I would hope that, that maybe we take the lead on stuff like this. And maybe what we end up doing is we end up inspiring the city and the economic development folks to add some different stuff to the mix of the things that they're doing.
Great. So with that, Peter, thank you again for your time and your inspiration.
My pleasure. It's great to actually do something kind of, feeling productive about all this. So, yeah.
And enjoy your gorgeous St. Petersburg weather down there.
Not bad today. Yes. All right, guys. Yeah. Right.
Great. Thank you.
Cheers.